Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO, founder of SaaStock. Delighted to be joined today by a guest who's been on the podcast once before, has rejoined a year later. He's now a dad of one, so that's one of the changes. Welcome, Esben Friis-Jensen, who's the co-founder and chief growth officer at Userflow. Welcome, Esben.
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, great to have you. So you're back in Europe.
Yeah,
you're kind of showing off the new baby, right?
Yeah, I'm only here for almost 2 months, but still live in the US. Originally from Denmark, so I had to go back and kind of show off my son to the family and friends. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then I took a short holiday here in Switzerland, where I'm at the moment. So it's been nice too.
Very nice. Never been to Switzerland. Recommend it?
Yeah, highly recommended. Lots of beautiful lakes, mountains, all that stuff. It's a great place.
Sounds okay. Sounds okay where I'm sitting now. And then when you go back to the US, am I right? Like you sort of travel around, but I think last time you were in Colorado.
Yeah, it was something we started, my wife and I, during COVID. We kind of got tired of being in San Francisco, where we have been based for the last eight years before that. And then we basically traveled for 2.5 years. We've been traveling, living in different states in the US primarily, but also outside of the US. And now when COVID is over, we are and have a kid. We're considering where we should make a home, but right now we're still traveling a bit around, but closer to San Francisco.
Yeah, I think. I mean, probably you could do more than this, but I think generally until the kid is 4 years old and you have to start thinking about school. I think even actually in Scandinavia, you've got to be 7 or something like that before you start primary school. Yeah. But in the UK, I think they go at 4/5 years old. So until then, you can travel around and you don't have those have to be tied down anywhere. And then once you put them into school, it's we kind of really need to think about putting down roots and not disrupting so often.
Yeah, we'll make the best of it for sure. We definitely want to travel, see more of the world. So yeah, we're going to do that.
Good. And speaking of traveling, in a month's time, you'll be in Austin for SaaStockUSA. Excited for that and to see you again and remind myself how tall you are in person. So that'll be fun. Reliving SaaStock in Austin. So I'm excited for that. But Esben, we've got a little bit of a glimpse into who you are just then, and obviously you were on the podcast a year ago, but tell us a little bit about yourself as a person. First off, who is Esben Friis-Jensen?
It's a big question, but professionally, I guess I'm the founder of or co-founder of Userflow, which is a no-code software as a service application for basically building onboarding for your product, so you can build a layer on top of your software product to better onboard customers. And prior to that, I co-founded another company called Cobalt, which was a cybersecurity software as a service company. Today a Series B, 200 plus employees. But left that operationally to basically start Userflow together with my friend Sebastian. And it's a completely different company. We're bootstrapping. We're only 3 people. Very, very exciting journey. And then more personally, I'm married. I have a kid now, as you said, and I've lived in San Francisco for the last 10 years. Came here with Cobalt and kind of decided to stay there for a while.
Very cool. What about you? So you co-founded. This is the second SaaS company that you co-founded. Any businesses before Cobalt?
No. So before Cobalt, I was an Accenture consultant. So basically working for these bigger, more traditional enterprises, implementing SAP and these kind of boring software systems. That was a lot of fun. I actually stayed in Switzerland for a while and got to travel, but I always wanted to do something with a bigger impact, and I felt you could do that by building your own business instead of just consulting for others. So that's what I did, and never looked back since then.
There's no regrets. So in terms of that entrepreneurial bug, do you think you always had that, and that kind of time at Accenture was just something to really kind of, I don't know, give you a little bit more kind of experience in the corporate world to then find out what it is that you wanted to build?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think from when I was like 16 years old, I've been playing with websites. Me and my brother were building websites, these kind of download illegal MP3 files or whatever you were doing back then in the younger days. But yeah, so we always built websites and always wanted to do something. But I think then, life happened, school, university, you kind of get sucked into that whole system of university. And after university, it wasn't really a valid option to become an entrepreneur. It wasn't one of the options that I thought about. But so I joined Accenture because that was where, if you were ambitious, you would join a consultancy. But then luckily in Accenture, I actually met my later co-founder in Cobalt, Jacob, and he kind of convinced me to go into entrepreneurship. And I think also over that was in 2013, or we started talking about it in 2012. Denmark had changed a lot at that point, and building a startup had become more a normal thing to do and something that people were doing also straight out of university. So yeah, different world, and today it's even more a valid alternative to joining a company.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think, like, for me as well, like, let's say many years ago, I'm probably as old, or if not a little bit older than you, Esben. Not to say that you're old, but in my 20s, I had that entrepreneurial bug and yearning, but I also what I was missing was a little bit of drive and wherewithal. So I kind of bought some time by becoming a sales exec and selling other people's software and just kind of like just figuring out, getting a bit of experience. And as I got to kind of 30 and the clock was kind of ticking, I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, where's this business idea, this sort of grand design? And yeah, I think just then the drive element added into the entrepreneurial element, which then led me to then creating what is now today SaaStock. But many ideas that I kind of like had and that were on the shelf like in my 20s, I've seen now into realization from other people that have done them. But I just didn't have that wherewithal. Whereas I think sort of now, as you say, I don't know, there's just like maybe the barriers to entry a little bit like easier. There's more stories around entrepreneurship and how you can do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just interesting, and it's a great thing, right? To
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And today you can even join a startup as an employee, right? Which wasn't like a thing back then. Yeah.
Exactly. And so Cobalt, 200-person venture-backed SaaS company, still going, still growing.
Yeah.
You've co-founded that, and now you're kind of doing the opposite. But I mean, it is growing, right? And it's got great revenue, but you're building or you're bootstrapping, and you have 3-person company, and you're doing 3 million revenue.
We're getting closer to 4 million actually.
Okay, so 1 million per head, full-time heads, right? So has that Cobalt experience, like, why did you decide to almost do like the opposite? Was there anything to do with Cobalt, or was it just like, hey, I'm going to do this?
I mean, number one is experience, right? I think it would have been very hard to do what we do with Userflow if I hadn't done Cobalt prior to Userflow. So it wasn't like just a decision you make. It's more now I had the experience. I've already built one company. I've seen like what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and learn from that, right? So that's definitely a big factor. Then the second big thing has been to be much more product-led. I think what many sales or many investor-backed SaaS businesses end up being very sales-led, basically, because they are raising capital and typically large rounds, and then they need to deploy that capital, and they end up hiring a lot of people, salespeople, customer success people. So you become much more people-led instead of product-led. So it's really, for us, it's been having a really core focus on the product, and also setting out from the beginning that is what we wanted to do, right? Like keep the company small and lean, not go out and raise that big fundraising round, but see how far we could take it with just a small team and a great product.
Interestingly, I guess it's quite topical in a way. If we see like what Elon Musk did, whether it was popular or not with Twitter, and he saw that this is a very bloated company, in his opinion, and I think perhaps he was right. cut 50% or more of the staff, saw that things still worked, and then many other companies have kind of like followed suit to see actually like, do we really need all these people to build a company? So do you think you're a little bit on a prescient there to kind of think like, okay, we can build like these lean organizations, and now like people are waking up to this, that we don't really need 100 people or 200 people, right, to run a company.
Yeah, I think people definitely realize the problem is when money is cheap, you end up making bad decisions about hiring people, and you end up hiring too many people, right? And that's what we've seen the last 2-3 years, and that's what we're seeing the effect of now. And it's unfortunately it's impacting real people who are getting laid off, right? But yeah, it's because money being basically cheap, and then you can just go out and hire people, but you're not building an efficient company. One of the companies we admire a lot here at Userflow is Danish founded Basecamp DHH, who's always been preaching. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of the stuff him and his co-founder are saying about building lean organizations, thinking profit first, and these kind of things are ideals we also follow at Userflow.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, we had DHH on a SaaStock virtual conference, and got him in a debate with Christoph Jans. It's on YouTube. It was quite entertaining. For sure. So we'd love to have him back at one point. So in a minute, we're going to talk about a LinkedIn post. So talking of provocative Danish people, right? This is a good
I'm not as provocative as DHH yet.
You wrote a LinkedIn post which was quite provocative, right? About like, how the SaaS org needs to change to support PLG. And I want to talk about that in a minute. But before we go to that, I want to talk about how you've gone from, in 1 year since you've been on the podcast, and maybe the podcast is the answer, but I doubt it, right? How you've gone from 1 million ARR with 2.5 people, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was one of our employees was a freelancer, now he's full-time.
Yeah, okay. So now you're so you've only added a half a person on, but you've added in another 2 million ARR in 1 year. What are you doing? What are the secrets? Like share. Like, yeah, what's worked really well between last time on the podcast in that space of the year to now? What are the things? You're doing some things.
Yeah, it's basically a lot of, and for those who don't listen to that episode, they should go listen to it. But we follow a very product-led model, right? Product-led growth. So basically the product is the primary driver for acquiring or activating our customers. So we have a free trial. You sign up for that. We use Userflow and Userflow, so users get onboarded automatically and really see the value. We focus a lot on having a great UX, making it easy to see the value fast and really see that impact, right? So that's a big part of it is that model that's very self-service, that doesn't require a lot of work from us to basically manage. And then the second part has been, and even with the current kind of downturn in the market, it's of course changed a bit, but there has been a huge focus due to those same reasons that product-led growth has become more popular. Then more businesses are looking to become product-led, so they need a solution like Userflow to basically do better onboarding, get more self-service. So we've been kind of riding that trend, basically, that more businesses in software businesses are looking to become product-led. So even though we're in a competitive market, we've been kind of riding a big trend that many are looking for a tool like ours. And so I think it's those two dimensions that it's been something that people want. And then we have a strong kind of product-led process that reduces the workload for us acquiring customers.
You mentioned it's a competitive market, right? So why do you think that you might stand out, over and above some of the competition, obviously apart from the strong product-led kind of area? Like when somebody's looking for a solution like yours, like how are they finding you, perhaps over and above some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, we of course do SEM, SEO, all that stuff, but I think the essence is really, and that's what people often forget when it comes to product-led growth. Like product-led growth, yes, you can do all these processes and that we do all that, but the essence of it is really having a great product, right? A great product that's easy to use, that is highly sophisticated, can do what the customers want it to do, in a good way, an easy to use way. And that's something we're hyper focused on, like building the best product in the market, always being ahead of the competition on having the best product. So that's how we've been growing. We actually, when you look at our market, you have some more expensive players that have been around for a while, and then you have some cheaper players with less robust solutions. And then we're kind of in the middle, but we think we have a middle price solution, but it's a premium solution that's as good, if not better, than the more expensive solutions. So that's what we're hearing from our customers, is that we basically have the best product in the market, and that's why they go with Userflow.
Very good. So let's sort of jump in a little bit to how the SaaS org needs to change to support PLG. Now, we have in this kind of like intro section, talked a little bit about product-led growth. I feel, obviously, because I live in this like SaaS bubble, that everybody should know the acronyms and should know what product-led growth is and so on. But we have a community of founders in SaaStock who are SaaS founders that are learning to build their businesses. And sometimes I get questions like, what's an SDR? Or what is PLG? And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not know this, right? But actually, it's a little bit unfair because I live in this bubble. And so given that people ask these questions, let's remind folks what product-led growth is and why you took that particular approach.
Yeah, no, so I think there are two ways of kind of looking at it. One was comparing it to its kind of counterpart, sales-led growth. So sales-led growth has been kind of the traditional, or it's been a very kind of, the most popular way to drive a SaaS business has basically been to have sales-led growth, where you have a demo form so people can sign up for a demo. Then you have a salesperson kind of doing that demo. You do more calls maybe to decide on whether this user should buy the product or not. You do contract negotiation. And then when you are kind of ready, they sign the contract. Then they get onboarded by customer success manager in another meeting, and then they get to try the product, right? And in a product-led model, you turn that around and you make it much more efficient. You basically put the hands in the product in the hands of the users first. So they do that through a free trial or freemium. They experience the value directly in the product. They see the value. They basically make a purchasing decision, ideally by just trying the product. And then they buy self-service and they get onboarded self-service. That's kind of the ideal route, right? But you can also add like a sales assist and so on to product-led, but that's kind of a good way to look at it. And then the other way of looking at it for me, and that's perhaps maybe even more important, it's a culture in a company to always think product first in everything you do. So basically, whenever you want to solve a problem, let's say we're getting way too many support tickets, then you basically say, how could we solve that by fixing it in the product? Is there some UX challenges we need to solve? Like instead of hiring people to do more support, right? That could be the sales-led approach to kind of doing that. So it's always about thinking product first in everything you do.
Okay, and let's start with the why before we go into the how. So why does a SaaS organization need to change to support PLG?
So what we've been seeing, always been seeing, and this is what happened to Cobalt, we raised money, right? And then you want to scale your team. And how it's always been advised from VCs and others is when you scale your team, you specialize, right? So you start out building a marketing function, a sales function, a customer success function, product function, engineering function. And you end up with a lot of different teams, a lot of different managers, because you're kind of being told to specialize, right? And that's the best way to scale a SaaS organization. But as the world has changed, now we have empowered end users, right? It's much more product-led, and you have a different kind of SaaS world, at least for the product-led business. And I think it's going to change even more in the future. But the organization hasn't changed, right? You're still scaling the organization with sales, customer success, marketing, and so on. And the problem with that is you end up with silos. So basically teams that are one working in their own silos and they're not collaborating. They're trying to achieve their own goals. And that in such an organization, you can basically never become product-led, because product-led is all about how can we solve this together in the product? How can we make it self-service. Instead, you end up in a situation where sales and customer success are battling who owns this customer and at what point in time do we transition and all these stupid things, right? That's a waste of time. You also end up with an organization where people are, because there are so many departments, you have managers, and each manager, to kind of prove they're a manager, they need to hire somebody, right? They need to hire teams below them to kind of say, I'm a manager, so I need at least 10 people, right? And that's not the best decision necessarily for the company, that you end up hiring all these people, because it's not making the company more effective necessarily, because a manager just needs 10 people for them to say they're a manager, right? So it's different kind of mechanisms like that is really blocking product-led growth from accomplishing its full potential in sales-led companies, is that you are still building the organization in the old way, basically.
And so what is your way? Like, how would you change from that old way in all these specialized departments to this new way? I saw
I'm just mirroring what we're doing at Userflow, right? And we're 3 employees. I'm the growth guy. I manage marketing, sales, customer success. But basically, it's not. I don't even call it sales or customer success. I would say I'm a product expert, right? I support customers when they have questions. I do the demos. I'm basically a product expert, right? I'm just kind of facilitating that the people who sign up for a free trial, that they get their questions answered in a good way. And so that's my role. And then you have my co-founder. He's the CEO, but he's also more primarily building the product, right? He's managing both product and engineering. He's basically he's not only building the product, but he's also defining the features and defining how it should look like, right? And then the last person is a designer who works for my co-founder, right? So when I'm looking at that organization and saying, how would I scale that? Instead of like building 5 or 6 new departments, I would just scale below these departments. I would build a go-to-market or growth or whatever you want to call it department, and then I would have a product/engineering department. And that's how I would scale the organization, because then you don't end up with like 6 different managers who needs to be aligned. You just have 2 managers and maybe a CEO and a finance team on top, right? But that's it, and it becomes a much more a smaller and leaner organization that's easier to align kind of big changes in, basically.
How big do you think a company you can be to kind of scale with that sort of organization? Can you become a Craigslist at 1 billion in revenue and 50 people?
It's a good question. I think I've seen some examples out there. AHA, which is a bootstrap company to 100 million ARR, they didn't have salespeople, I think at least until they hit like 50 million ARR or something like that, maybe more. They also just had these like product experts, right? Like basically this mix between sales and customer success. So I think it is definitely possible. I think the problem is always when you start to scale, some people who have that background from the other SaaS organizations are going to come into the organization and try to change the culture and say, you can't do this, right? And I think at some point, you just get too many of those and they will change the organization to the old way, right? So I think it's a paradigm change where we need to make such an organization acceptable even at scale. So I actually think it's possible to scale it beyond 50 million ARR, maybe beyond 100 million ARR. I don't think it's a problem to do that, especially with the whole product-led growth motion and more self-service.
These are ones that are going to do that. Is that your do you see Userflow is going to be a 100 million organization, or do you want a nice kind of lifestyle business like 5-10 million in revenue with 3 people?
Yeah. No, I think we should definitely, if we wanted to do that, we could become if we wanted to go after that target, right? I think for us, we're kind of enjoying just being the 3 of us. But if we wanted to go after being a 100 million ARR business, I think we could, and we would be able to do that, but we would need to hire more people in these kind of areas, right? Just basically to get more exposure. And for the product side, it's actually interesting because the more people you add, the more complexity you add. But if you want to build a 100 million AR business, you probably need more than one developer, right? So yeah.
And just out of curiosity, because you say you don't have a salesperson and you're the product guy and you're doing the demos, do you have, without the sales org or the salesperson, do you have a sales CRM? Are you keeping track of like everybody that's, done a demo, downloaded and progressing across the pipeline,
Yeah, I actually wrote an article called The Search for the SaaS CRM. I think it was 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. Because, we are using a CRM. We use HubSpot today to manage all our trials and all that stuff. But it's not really connected to the product in a good way. We're kind of hacking it with Zapier. But for instance, we use a solution called ChartMogul, which is great. We use that for all our SaaS metrics, and they are connected to our product and Stripe. And they also just actually released that they are now trying to build a CRM, which is super interesting. It's something I'm going to keep a close eye on. I think it's a big undertaking for them to do because going from being a reporting system to being a system of action it's two different things basically. But I like where they're going with it because they're much more connected to the product, and I think that's where we need to go. CRMs just needs to be more connected to the product basically, and less manual.
Yeah, I saw the announcement as well from Nick at ChartMogul, and he'll be on the podcast soon talking more about that and that move. So stay tuned. Very cool. So we're going to move into the quickfire rounds. Are you ready for this?
Yep, I'm always ready. Or we'll see.
What one thing has moved the needle the most for Userflow?
So I think it's this, how fast we can show the value of our product. Within minutes of you signing up for a free trial, you get to build your very first onboarding flow and you can see the value right away. So I think that's super important for almost all free trial freemium models, is that you can show that value really, really quickly.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
My favorite person when it comes to advice is actually, so in Cobalt we went to an accelerator with Boost, Adam Draper. He's a golden nugget kind of guy, and one of them is like beat a cockroach, and I think that's a good advice for the current time we're in. It's basically just stay around and then you will survive and you'll get through it and do great.
Very cool. Beat the cockroach.
Yeah.
Hardest thing about PLG?
So for a sales-led company, it's changing the culture to think product first. And I think we went through that with Cobalt. It was really, really hard. But to be future-proof, I think you need to do that.
What about the hardest thing about building a startup in 2023?
Accepting the fact that things are not growing as fast as they used to. I think the only area where we're seeing hypergrowth still is in AI. So if you can build something really, really cool with AI, then you might enjoy it more in 2023.
Yeah, if you landed on generative AI, if you're open AI, it's going to be a good year for you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book on entrepreneurship?
So yeah, I read a lot of books. There's the Product-Led Growth book by Wes Bush. I always recommend. But actually, one book that's not on entrepreneurship as such is a biography I read. I can't remember the author, on George Lucas, on how he made the Star Wars movies and Indiana Jones and these kind of things. And I think it's a great book on how you build the best things as a team and not as a single person. He made the worst movies when he tried to do everything on his own, right, and the best movies when he had a great team around him.
Very cool, very cool. Makes sense. Outside of Userflow, what is your favorite SaaS company and why?
Yeah, so Basecamp comes to mind, right? As I said, because they're such a lean organization. But from a favorite kind of product that I like, I think Stripe is fantastic what they've done for the ecosystem. It's just a product that makes the life of being a SaaS business much easier. You get your money on time, and it's easy to collect and so on. So any payment solution that can do that, that's great.
Very cool, good stuff. So final questions now as we're sort of wrapping up, Esben, and thanks for completing the quickfire round. So we mentioned that we'll see you again in Austin at the end of this month, so May 31st to the 2nd of June, SaaStockUSA is taking place. First time in Austin. It's going to be our new home in the US, and building that out like we do with our Dublin conference. What are you speaking about at the conference? What are you looking forward to? Have you ever been to Austin before? And any tips?
Yeah, no, I'm bringing my provocative opinions into real life. I'm going to be speaking about how we should change the SaaS org, and hopefully we'll get a good discussion with some people at the conference. That's what I'm hoping for. I think my provocative ideas is not always 100% correct, but they are made to basically just move the needle a bit and change the world just a tiny bit.
Very good. Have you ever been to Austin before?
Yeah, actually once to watch the Formula One in Austin. That was fantastic. But yeah, looking forward to being back.
Yeah, sadly, it's not a Formula One weekend. That would have, or week, because that would have worked well for me because I'm an F1 fan. I would have gone to that. But we're thinking of, speaking of F1 and SaaS founders, we're thinking of taking some founders out to Miami next year. So
it's going to be a big year for Formula One in the US. Both Las Vegas and Miami is going to be.
Are you doing any of the Grand Prix?
We'll see. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, potentially it was. I enjoyed it a lot in Austin. So hopefully we'll see how well Kevin Magnussen will do when I want to join the race.
That's good stuff. All right. Well, Esben, thank you so much for being a guest on the SaaS Revolution Show today for the second time. We'll see you May 31st to the 2nd of June at SaaStockUSA. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, your provocative thoughts on everything, but changing an organization, support organization in a SaaS company. And look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.